Good morning, Abotai. Now with the summer upon us, it's a very popular time for grilling, and it's important to know how to kosher different cuts of meat before we consume them. As we know, it's forbidden to consume any kind of blood from animals, and that's why the Chachamim told us how to kosher the meat before we eat it. Now, in general, we're not so proficient in these laws because the koshering and the soaking and salting is done in the slaughterhouses under the supervision of the hashgacha. So we don't usually do it at home like they did in the old days. But it's important just to know because there are certain times where we do have to do it. So first of all, according to Torah law, if a person is eating meat raw, which was the case, it was very common during the times of Chazal. It was called umtza. They would eat meat raw. Over there, meat did not need to be salted if it was eaten raw. It just needed to be washed off from the blood on the surface very well, and then you can eat it. Similarly, if a person is eating grilled meat, a person doesn't have to salt that either, because fire is much more powerful than salt in being able to draw out the blood from the meat. The only time the Torah requires us to salt meat is only when it's going to be cooked in a pot without direct contact with the fire. Then we're concerned that the blood is going to be, like the Gemara calls it, pirish, mimakom lemakom. The blood is going to travel from one piece to another, from one part to another in the meat, and that's going to be an isur, and we have to salt it because of that. Now, there is a process that the Rambam brings down also in terms of koshering meat that is the minhag is not to practice this anymore. The Shulchan Aruch in Yoreh De'ah Siman Samach Tet says that it's not the minhag, but the Rambam says that there's a method that needs to be done that's even more effective than salting, which is called chalita. It's called scalding. You have a boiling pot of meat, and when it comes to an aggressive boil, you take the meat and you put it into the boiling water for a few seconds and you take it out, in which case that closes all of the pores of the meat and it will no longer let the blood out anytime in the future. That is the minhag of some Timanim who are very strict and follow the Rambam for everything they do. But like I said, most of Am Yisrael does not do this process anymore. Now, in terms of salting meat, this applies to meat and to chicken, anything that requires shechita and anything that has blood. The halacha is that a person first has to do hadacha rishona, which means to wash off the meat, either soak it or wash it aggressively to take off all of the blood on the surface. Then a person has to apply normal size salt. It's called kosher salt. Not too the granules of salt shouldn't be too thin or too thick, so that it can stick to all the parts of the meat on all sides, and then leave it there in that position, according to Maran Shulchan Aruch, for about 18 minutes, according to the Rama, and that's the minhag that almost everyone does today, for about an hour, and then afterwards you have to soak it and wash it off again to wash off all the blood that was drawn out, in which case, once that's done, a person can cook the meat without any issue. We'll speak about Be'ezrat Hashem in coming days, that there are certain internal organs that have to be koshered in a little bit of a different way because they are unique in certain areas. So we'll speak about that Be'ezrat Hashem in coming days. Have a wonderful day.